I think the response from Miss Daphne was very helpful. She was
Hmm.
very encouraging. Each time I sent my essays in, she gave me a lot of confidence.
You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
IELTS Speaking, recent pathway questions and sample answers. Hello there, my name is Ben Worthington. Thank you for tuning in today to today's tutorial. We're going to review around 12 questions, more or less. The topics will be public facilities, challenges and difficult tasks, and leadership. Now, there is a high chance that you've never probably thought about these points before. I was quite surprised when I saw these new questions in the examiner's booklet. So, even if you have thought about these answers before, there is usually a huge gap between actually thinking about them and thinking that you could put something together. You could construct a sentence and speak that sentence and actually doing it. So there's a gap between thinking you're able to do this and then the actual reality. And I'm saying this because I myself have tripped up numerous times when I've just looked at a page and think, oh yeah, I can talk about that. And it actually comes to it and I'm like, So the takeaway that I want you to leave this tutorial with is actually speak these answers. When you speak your answers, you're going to find out that actually there might be gaps in your vocabulary. There might be gaps in your grammar. You might want to make a comparison and you might struggle on that comparison. So just being vaguely aware is not the same as being competent enough to speak 3 clear, cohesive sentences about the question. Now, that piece of advice comes from my well over 10 years of experience helping students with the IELTS exam. When I got started with this IELTS exam, I was just as lost as you were. I actually had 1 or 2 embarrassing incidents in the classroom when I started. These were only the first classes because I very quickly got my act together. I decided to make IELTS my thing because the students I found in my IELTS classes were just amazing. Picture this. I used to teach a bunch of business students who needed English for their work. You might think that they were ambitious and enthusiastic in the class, but not really, because they were forced to go to these classes. So their motivation was severely lacking. Now, another class, a bunch of teenagers. Were they motivated? No. It was horrible teaching these lot because they were only there because their parents forced them to. Just like the business students, the bosses forced them to. They had no interest. And that's incredibly difficult for a teacher. Now compare that with practically all my IELTS students. All of them are ridiculously enthusiastic, ridiculously ambitious. And that's why I love working with you guys, because you're on a mission. You're on a mission to study in another place. You're on a mission to work in another country. You're on a mission to get settled status or permanent residency in another country. These are huge leaps. And these are not taken. These leaps, this pathway is not taken lightly. A lot of students, a lot of people just take the easy option. So that's why I love working with IELTS students. They're ambitious, they're results orientated, and it's just a perfect match. So let's jump into it. First topic today. Actually, just one thing before I jump into it. We have a new project at IELTS Podcast. It's called Bye Bye Human English Tutor.com. When I tell my work friends about this, I say the goal is to eradicate English teachers. There's two reasons I say this. One is to get them interested in my project, because when someone says they want to eradicate English teachers, it probably makes you listen. But the second reason is because it's my honest belief that there are a lot of useless English teachers out there, and I think they can be replaced. And I think it's completely unfair that so many students want to learn English, but a huge amount just cannot afford an English tutor, or they just cannot access an English tutor. And they cannot maybe even access a competent one, because the competent ones are usually very expensive, like myself. So anyway, I set up this service, byebyhumanenglishtutor.com, and you can go there and you can practice your fluency. You can speak with a chatbot. It's supposed to sound like me. I don't really think it does. But you can practice your fluency. You can see what you're saying because it gets transcribed. You can do the question again if you want to do it. You can do the same question all day without feeling uncomfortable, as if you were doing it with a tutor. You can ask questions about the English language. You can even simulate your Part 3 IELTS exam. That's only available to listeners of these tutorials at the moment. We're going to go seriously live maybe in a month or two. I'm just really struggling with the technical side, but we're making progress. So that's Bye Bye Human English Tutor. Let's jump into today's topic. Recent Part 3 questions and sample answers. I'll blast you with the questions, and maybe you can pause and just practice your answers, and then we'll go through and do the answers. Public facilities. What are the benefits of public facilities? Why are some public transport methods popular, such as the subway? Why are some public transport methods unpopular? How can cities improve their public facilities? Let's go. What are the benefits of public facilities? Well, I guess they have numerous benefits. They reduce the cost for the users, for passengers, for commuters. And I guess they also reduce traffic jams. In a city that I used to live in, they had remarkable public transport. They had a subway, an underground subway. They had trams and they had buses. And this was incredibly valuable for the local population. It also made the city a much more pleasant place to live. There we go. A few sentences, an example. I didn't tell them about, my wife finding it so easy to get on a tram or whatever. No. Basic answer there. Why are some public transport methods popular, such as the subway? I guess the subway is quite popular, and other public transport's also popular because they reduce the need for you to use your car. And cars can be quite expensive. And although they might save you time, nowadays, with the hassle of parking, and because there's so many cars on the road, it can actually be more time consuming to take your car into a city. So I guess they're popular because they save the users time and money. There we go. So I used the sandwich technique. I gave a few points. I gave a contrast, and then I just summarized it at the end with just a few points. Why are some public transport methods unpopular? I think some methods might not be so popular because they might be at their maximum capacity. For example, the London Underground is renowned for just having packed train carriages, and this can be quite uncomfortable for most passengers actually. But I think it gets especially uncomfortable if you have a wheelchair or a pram or you might suffer some other disability. So I guess when they're at overcapacity and there's too many people using them, that's when they could be unpopular. There we go. So I tried to rephrase a few ways of saying unpopular. I tried to give a few reasons with examples just to build out my case, to give evidence and to improve my vocabulary score as well. How can cities improve their public facilities? I guess cities could improve their public facilities just by investing in them more. In my country, a lot of the facilities are privatized and they don't seem to get that much investment and they don't seem to be improving that much. So I think if companies or the government invested in them, they could make them more accessible. They could possibly increase frequency. They could extend lines to increase their usability. So I guess there's lots of different ways cities could improve their public facilities. But to summarize, I guess it just comes down to money, like most issues in the world today. There we go. So I gave some examples, I gave reasons, and I just extended the answer. I summarized the answer, and summarizing helps you a lot because it gives that clear indication to the examiner that you've finished and we don't have those uncomfortable silences. Next one, challenges and difficult tasks. What challenges do young people face today? How do young people handle difficult or challenging tasks? Is it better to face difficulties alone or seek help from others? Do you think people need to be challenged? There we go. What challenges do young people face today? I guess like most things, or most people, I think the main challenge is probably money. There's been a lot of inflation today, and linked to this is possibly buying a house or getting a house. And I think university study, the increasing cost of university. So I guess there's a lot of challenges today. And I think just ultimately it comes down to finance and just having the cash available. So those would be the main challenges I believe young people face nowadays. So there we go. Quite a few variations: cash, money, finance. Tried to link it all together to inflation. I realized halfway through my answer that young people, I'm no longer young anymore. And I just kind of put my own challenge there, which is buying a house for my family. But I tried to extend it by talking about other challenges such as university and inflation and generalized. But it's not really so much the content of your answer, it's more how you say it, the vocabulary and the grammar you're using. And again, I just brought it back to the beginning by summarizing and, concluding is probably finance. How do young people handle difficult or challenging tasks? To be honest with you, I never really thought about this, but I think young people would probably use technology. A lot of young people today are mobile native, so it's not a challenge to use the mobile phones or web apps and technology to help them. They use it for practically all the communication and the work and the study. So I guess young people would use technology to face or handle challenging tasks. For example, I know a lot of people who use organizational apps just to help them obviously organize themselves and improve their productivity. So I think technology is probably one of the key ways a young person may handle difficult tasks nowadays. There we go. So I did start talking about my cousin for 2 words and I just generalized it. I thought that would be a more professional answer there, because you've probably heard me say, oh, we can't talk about our uncle. It's not the end of the world if you do take it personal, but I think it just sounds better, and it gives you more opportunity as well if you can sort of like take a step back and look at it from a more generalized societal point of view. Next question. Is it better to face difficulties alone or seek help from others? Well, I believe nowadays in some cultures, a lot of people are highly individualistic. And I think this might be a trait that has quite a lot of limitations, because when we ask for others, we get new points of view, and especially if we ask people from different generations. So to answer your question, I honestly think, although I'm from an individualistic culture, I think it's probably better to get advice from others, especially if they can offer you different perspectives and use their experience. There we go. So some lovely vocabulary there. You know, a different generational experience, different generational perspective. Next question. Do you think people need to be challenged? Absolutely, 100%. I think without challenge, we could get soft, we can get lazy, and challenges have the reverse effect. They make us stretch, they make us grow, they push us to new abilities that we might not have thought were possible otherwise. So definitely, challenges are honestly the root of most growth, and unfortunately I think they're not common enough in modern society. So yes, most people need and should be challenged. I think with most of these answers we could possibly answer with it depends and then look at both views. That's a possibility, but if you think if you feel strongly about it, go for it and jump in there with both feet. Don't get politically wound up about it if it's like a political question. But for this one, I think it's for these types of questions, it's relatively safe, and you can really jump in and give your opinion there. Another answer could be, well, it depends. Some people might get stressed out and nervous and suffer anxiety attacks if they are over challenged. For example, workplace exhaustion is quite common nowadays, and perhaps measures should be taken to protect mental health. However, I think just to conclude, challenges are generally positive, but we should be aware of not overstretching ourselves. So both of those answers are perfectly acceptable. We're going to be graded more on our ability to communicate rather than the content. The examiner is not going to give us the examiner is not going to grade us based on our beliefs on challenges and difficult tasks. The examiner is going to grade us on our ability to talk about challenges and difficult tasks. That's why it's incredibly useful, incredibly valuable to look at it from different perspectives, to talk about it in a hypothetical sense, to give concrete examples that boost our vocabulary, to give reasons, to develop, to construct our answer, and then wrap it up in a summary. That's what we're getting graded on, not our personal beliefs about challenges and difficult tasks. So just keep that in mind. Leadership. What qualities are required to become a company leader? What factors determine whether a small company will become successful? Does the latest technology play an important role in a company's development? What do you think of charitable organizations? It's a bit random, that one at the end. Anyway, let's jump into it. What qualities are required to become a company leader? To be honest, I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to have to guess this. I think confidence and trust would be essential, because if you don't trust a company leader, if you're an employee and you don't trust a company leader, you might start doubting their direction. And when doubt starts to creep in, it oftentimes affects an employee's performance. So I guess they have to be trustworthy, and they have to have confidence, because it's difficult to follow somebody who's not truly convicted in their actions or their plans. So although it's not my area of expertise, I would say confidence and trust are probably the most essential skills or qualities needed. There we go. That was a completely hypothetical answer. I put it all in, with may, they might, I guess they could. I gave hypothetical scenarios. I'm showing the examiner what I can do with the English language. Next, what factors determine whether a small company will become successful? This is quite tricky for me to answer, to be honest, because I've never really worked in a small company. But I guess timing might be a key factor. For example, if you open up a fish and chip shop at 2 a.m. in the morning, the chances of being successful might be very slim. Whereas if you're open on a Friday afternoon, when most people buy fish, for example, in England, or have fish for their meal, then I guess you increase your chances. But to be honest, I guess there's a whole range of factors, and it really depends on what industry or sector you're working in. So just to answer your question, I think I would go timing and obviously the ability of the workforce, the small workforce that you have. There we go. Not the most eloquent of answers. I summarized it. I maybe went into too much detail about timing with my example, but the question did ask for factors, so I just tacked on the end about workforce as well. Probably not a band 9 answer, but it was just a good example of like throwing in a rescue sentence just to make sure that it's not a complete loss, that the answer is not a complete loss. And that's useful because we know we can't rewind and erase our answer. It's just not possible in the speaking exam. But we can add a rescue sentence. Does the latest technology play an important role in a company's development? 100%. Technology is so important nowadays. It's very common in my country that a company, whatever industry it's in, has a technology component. However, the latest technology is probably more important depending on the sector you're in. If you're a shoe shop, it might not have the biggest impact, but if you're a web development company, you have to be on the cutting edge of technology. Otherwise, you can't really deliver what you offer. So I think technology is important, but it's probably more dependent on the sector you're in. There we go. Very coherent. I use that depends answer. With a depends answer, you can take different points of view, and you can use it practically for every answer, but don't do it, because if you're using it depends on every single answer, the examiner's going to figure you out. But it's definitely useful for at least one or two of the questions, and it's an easy way to answer. Final question. What do you think of charitable organizations? To be honest, I think on the whole, charitable organizations play a very important role in today's society, especially when the government might be involved in cutting public services. However, sometimes charitable organizations get a bad rap because maybe the CEO is driving around in a Mercedes or a Rolls-Royce, and some people say that that money could have been used to help the actual people the charity set out to help. However, I think that's quite rare, but overall, charitable organizations, I think they're beneficial and necessary in today's world. There we go. I wanted to go down a different path there. I wanted to explain, okay, the guy drives a Mercedes, but if he brings in £2 million to the organization has an extra £2 million now. They wouldn't have it if that CEO didn't join the organization. So overall, the charity is better, but it just does look bad. But I was like, no, do not start mentioning that example. The answer is going to be way too long. It's going to be complicated to explain. It's not worth it. Just go for a more simple answer. Look at the pros and the cons of what people might think of charitable organizations and summarize your answer and finish. Pick up your band 7, 8 or 9 and you're on your way to Australia, the NHS, your masters, Edinburgh University, wherever. We're doing this exam to pick up the certificate. We're not doing this exam to share our personal point of view about leadership or transport. We're doing this exam to get a band 7, 8 or 9 and move forward in our life. This is a language exam. Language is communication. We're getting graded on communication, not so much content, but it also obviously has to be relevant. What do you think of charitable organizations? My dad drives a Lamborghini and he works for the NSPCC that helps children. No. So just keep that in mind. That's it for today. These tutorials are completely free. We do not charge for them. However, if you did get some value from this tutorial, share it with your friends. Make a post on the socials. That would be extremely helpful for us. And if you want to practice your speaking and you actually want to speak, and I'm not talking about talking into your phone and recording it and listening back to it. No, if you want to have a conversation, hear IELTS questions asked to you and get answers, get feedback, get that conversational. If you want that experience, if you want those conversations, then go to byebyehumannenglishtutor.com. You sign up with your Google account and you can start speaking. It's completely free for now. Later, we will be charging for this for obvious reasons. It's completely free for now. We're on a mission. We've got to get 1 billion students. Tune in on LinkedIn. I'm posting updates. Ben Worthington, IELTS. I'll be starting to update people about the project on LinkedIn. So come and join us. We're on a mission. And if you're struggling with your exam, go to IELTSPodcast.com. And you can use our AI essay checker. You can sign up. You can get 250, I think it's 242 IELTS Test 2 questions. And you can get a ton of valuable resources just to help you improve. All completely free. So good luck in your exam. Thanks for tuning in. Have a beautiful day and take care.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.